Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into an ancient text to unpack a pretty profound psychological mystery. Why on earth do we cling so desperately to the things that hurt us? No fluff today, we are jumping right into the very core of human emotion.
I mean, seriously, have you ever known a situation was absolutely terrible for you, but you just couldn't bring yourself to let it go? Have you ever felt that massive, incredibly frustrating disconnect between your head and your heart? Your intellect is screaming, walk away, this is bad news, but your emotions, they just completely refuse to listen. Well, today's explainer looks at this exact universal dilemma through the lens of a highly revered ancient text called the Devi Mahatmyam. We're going to zero in on the first chapter, specifically verses 4 through 45, to see if we can decode the mechanics behind this crazy psychological paradox.
Section 1. The Fallen King. So let's set the stage. We start with King Suratha of the ancient Chaitra dynasty, and the text makes it really clear that he was a genuinely virtuous ruler. This was a guy who cared for his subjects like they were his own kids. He was at the absolute top of the food chain, commanding a massive realm, until his perfect life just completely unravels. Out of nowhere, he's attacked by these enemy kings known as the Kola Vidvamsans.
And man, it is a rapid, agonizing downward spiral. Despite all his virtue and military power, King Suratha gets defeated in battle by a surprisingly smaller enemy force. So he retreats to his own city, thinking he's safe, but here comes the real gut punch. He gets entirely betrayed by his own corrupt ministers and inner circle. The very people he trusted most in the world strip him of his treasury and his army. Suddenly powerless, the king literally has to flee alone into a dense forest on horseback, pretending he's just out hunting just to escape with his life. Eventually, he manages to take refuge in the super peaceful, isolated ashram of an enlightened being named Sage Mevis.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. What do you think the king's internal state is like after the dust finally settles? You'd think, safely tucked away in this quiet hermitage, he'd be relieved just to be breathing, right? Well, actually, no. Just listen to his words. How is my prime war elephant being treated? My careless foes will quickly squander the wealth I collected with great effort. His mind is absolutely tortured. Even in perfect physical safety, he's obsessing over his lost kingdom, his old attendants, and, get this, his favorite elephant, all of which are now controlled by the exact same people who ruined his life.
Section 2. The Betrayed Merchant.
Okay, our story takes a brilliant little turn here. Enter Samadhi. He's a guy born into massive wealth and privilege, a highly successful merchant. But, just like our king, he happens to be wandering near that exact same forest ashram after suffering a completely devastating personal betrayal of his own.
It's a perfect mirror trajectory. Samadhi wasn't betrayed by government ministers, though. He was betrayed by his own wife and sons. Driven by just pure, unadulterated greed, his family stripped him of all his assets and literally cast him out of his own home in utter disgrace. And yet, here he is, wandering through the woods, and instead of being furious or even just relieved to be away from that toxicity, he is still constantly worrying about how they're doing.
I really want you to read this raw quote with me. What can I do? My mind simply does not harden into hatred. My heart clings to those who lack virtue. I mean, wow. That is deeply tragic, isn't it? This hits on the core psychological paradox we're looking at today. Intellectually, Samadhi knows his family is greedy. He knows they lack virtue. They threw him out on the street. And yet, his heart just refuses to stop loving them. He's heaving these heavy sighs, feeling utterly dejected over the exact same people who abused him.
Section 3. A shared emotional illness.
So, the narrative tension really peaks here because these two men, from completely different social universes, finally cross paths. On one side, King Suratha, tumbling from the highest echelon of royal power after a government betrayal. On the other side, merchant Samadhi, a wealthy private sector guy betrayed by his own family. They meet up at the ashram and quickly realize something super profound. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they are suffering from the exact same affliction. It just goes to show you, psychological suffering really doesn't care about your social status or your tax bracket.
And the text anchors this shared illness with an ancient Sanskrit concept, mamatwa. Both men realize they are deeply infected with mamatwa. Basically, it's this irrational possessiveness or emotional attachment to worldly things, even when those exact things are causing you profound, enduring pain. They are completely bound by a delusion they can't shake. They know they shouldn't care about the people who hurt them, but they just can't stop.
Section 4. The Ultimate Philosophical Question.
So bound by this shared sorrow and frankly desperate for a cure, the king and the merchant approach the enlightened sage Midhasa together. And King Suratha, speaking for both of them, poses this absolutely incredible question from verse 44. He asks, why do we fall into this delusion, even when we clearly recognize its defects with our intellect? Stop and just think about that for a second. How often have you asked yourself that exact same question? I know this relationship is toxic. I see all the red flags. I know this is bad for me. So why am I still holding on? It's our own modern struggle with logic versus emotion, perfectly voiced thousands of years ago.
Section 5. Introducing Mahatmyam.
All right, so Sage Midas begins his answer, and honestly, it is a complete paradigm shift. He looks at these two broken, ashamed men and tells them something that is deeply comforting but totally mind-bending. He says, this irrational attachment, it is not a personal failure. It is a cosmic mechanism. He explains that every single living, sensory-aware creature falls into this trap. It's not some fatal flaw in your character or a shameful lack of willpower. He completely reframes their intense emotional guilt into an absolute universal law that governs all of existence. Talk about a massive weight off your shoulders, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates the root cause of it all, Mahatmyam. Sage Midas defines this grand, sweeping force for them. Mahatmyam is the supreme cosmic power of the Divine Mother. It is a massive, structural cosmic illusion that deliberately deludes all beings just to keep the play of the universe, samsara, in motion. This is the actual force driving their irrational attachment to their betrayers. So you aren't just fighting your own brain, you're literally fighting against the energetic fabric of the universe itself.
Let's break down the dual nature of Mahatmyam really quickly, because this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. The text describes her as the Yoga Nidra, or the sleep of Lord Vishnu. And yes, she is the one driving this irrational attachment, this mamatva, in all creatures. She binds you to your suffering because she's actively keeping the world of samsara turning. But here is the ultimate plot twist. The exact same cosmic force that binds us to our toxic attachments is, simultaneously, the ultimate key to our liberation, or mukti. Basically, you cannot escape the illusion without the grace of the illusionist herself.
Which leaves us with this final, really crucial question to ponder today. If the cosmic illusion of Mahatmyam binds us to our pain, if our toxic attachments are actually just the universe working exactly as intended to keep the whole play in motion, how do we finally ask her for the key to our liberation? It completely reframes our entire struggle with letting go, doesn't it? Well, thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope exploring this ancient wisdom helps you look at your own emotional attachments in a totally new, illuminating way. See you next time.